Kaya siya hirap. Sulo ako.
Bawal, hindi pwede.
Hindi mo kabalo. Susukuan siya.
Bawal, di bawal.
Bawal mo siya ka mo.
Dili yun pwede.
Sige na lang. Bawal mo eh.
Pero bisan nga dili ta masakpan, mali gihapon na. Kaya as a student, honesty is the best policy. That's all about deontology. Doing what is right and not just easy.
Deontology is derived from the Greek word deon, which means duty. This theory mainly refers to the study of duty and obligation. The prominent of this theory is the German Enlightenment philosopher Immanuel Kant. He is popular by his important work on moral philosophy, namely Groundwork Towards Metaphysics of Moral in 1785, The Critic of Pure Reason in 1781, Critic of Practical Reason in 1788, and Critic of Judgment in 1790.
What makes deontology unique? Deontology's uniqueness lies in its focus on moral rules rather than consequences. Unlike consequentialist theories like utilitarianism, which judge actions based on their outcomes, deontology asserts that an action's morality depends solely on whether it adheres to a set of moral rules or duties. Even if an action with negative consequences follows a moral rule, it's considered morally right. Conversely, an action with positive consequences that violates a moral rule is considered wrong. This emphasis on duty and adherence to rules, regardless of outcome, it is the core distinction of deontological ethics. For Kant, a moral action is one that is done because it is the right thing to do, not because it brings any benefit or reward. This is known as acting from duty. If you tell the truth, even though it might cause you trouble, you are acting morally because you recognize that honesty is a principle that reason tells us is always right, regardless of the consequences. Another key idea in Kant's ethics is the autonomy of the will. This means that true morality comes from making choices using your own reason, rather than simply obeying orders or following what others say. What makes an action moral? According to Kant, moral actions have three main features. First, they are done freely. You choose to do what is right not because you are forced or pressured. Second, they are done for the sake of duty. You act out of respect for moral law, not for rewards or to avoid punishment. And last, they are independent of outcomes. The morality of an action does not depend on what happens as a result. It depends on the intention and principle behind it. Kant's main moral principle is called the categorical imperative. It says that you should only act according to rules that you would want everyone to follow at all times. This universal approach to morality is based on pure reason, not on personal preferences or specific situations.
We have two principles of categorical imperative. One, the universalizability principle. Kant expressed in his work on Foundation of the Metaphysics of Morals in 1785 what categorical imperative is. According to him, act only according by which you can at once will it to become a universal law. This statement is used to determine whether an act is morally permissible or not. Maxims refer to rules that we adhere to in our day-to-day life. However, it lacks the status of being considered as law, which is mandatory and avoidable. To illustrate this example, imagine the act of taking a bath in the morning every day. This is a rule that many of us do, but then again, it's not something that is required for everyone. You may take a bath in the morning every day, but it does not mean that everybody should take a bath in the morning every day too. Universalizability refers to the idea of a maxim being considered a universal law. By that, we mean imagining a hypothetical world wherein such a maxim becomes a law that everyone is required to follow and obey. For a maxim to become a universal law, you have to imagine a world where your act is not an exception to the rule and everyone is required to do the same and live by the same principle. Would you be willing for that maxim to become a universal law? If yes, then it can be universalized and deemed morally permissible. If not, then you should not do it for nor follow it, for such an act is morally impermissible. This therefore can be used as the basis for determining what we ought to do and what we aren't ought to do doing. Another example, maxim. I should cheat in the exam to get a good grade. Opposite maxim. I should not cheat in the exam to get a good grade. If the maxim becomes a universal law, then it can become a basis for determining the morality of an action. If promises are not made to be broken and you made a promise and then broke it, your act can be considered morally wrong according to deontology, regardless of the situation you are or in the result of your action.
The principle of ends, respect for persons. Kant's second formulation of the categorical imperative states, act so that to treat humanity, whether in your personal or in that of another, always as an end and never as a means only. Oftentimes, this is referred to as simply the principle of ends or sometimes called the principle of humanity. This statement implies that humans as rational beings should be treated always as an end but never as mere means. Although this could be misunderstood since we always use each other as means to each other's end. This is unavoidable, however. Kant here emphasized what he meant by mere ends. We should not treat others in a way that violates their humanity and disrespects their rationality. An example would be borrowing money from a friend. Upon asking her to lend you some money you intended to use in buying a new cell phone, you told her you need the money to pay for your tuition fee. You manipulated her by not telling her your true intention. If you only told her the truth, you would have given her the option to make up her mind whether to lend you the money or not, thus expecting her choice. We should not treat people in a way that they do not agree with. Our humanity is a collection of features that makes us distinctively human. This includes our rationality. Kant's humanity formula requires us to respect the humanity in a person and condemn all acts that treat humans as mere ends.
Strengths of deontology. Number 1. Human dignity. Deontology highlights the value of each person. Number 2. Goodwill. The importance of doing what's right for the right reasons. Number 3. Morality is under our control. It focuses on our ability to choose moral actions without relying on results. Number 4. Sense of duty. It gives us a clear guide for how to act. Number 5. Reason-based. It uses logic and reasoning. Number 6. Justice. It supports fairness and equality. Number 7. Universal application. Its rules apply to everyone equally. Number 8. Golden rule. It aligns with the idea of treating others how you would like to be treated. Number 9. Moral dependence. It encourages standing by your principles. Number 10. Moral rationality. Trusting your own mind to decide what's right or what's wrong.
Weaknesses of deontology. The first weakness is consequences ignored. Deontology focuses only on whether an action follows moral rules, not on what happened as a result. This can lead to a harmful outcome even if the person had a good intention. Second, conflict of duties. Sometimes two moral duties can clash, like being honest versus protecting a friend. Deontology doesn't always provide a clear way to choose between them. Third, too strict. Deontological rules are often absolute, meaning they must be followed no matter the situation. This leaves no room for exemption, even in emergencies. Fourth, emotion is overlooked. It treats morality as purely rational. ignoring the rule of emotion like compassion or empathy, which are important in real-life moral decisions. Fifth, exclude some people. It assumes everyone can reason morally, which may exclude individuals with mental illnesses or cognitive disabilities, unfairly labeling them as less moral. Sixth, not all universal actions are moral. Just because an action can be made a universal rule doesn't mean it's morally right. Some harmful action could be logically universalized.
In closing, deontology, especially as shaped by Immanuel Kant, calls us to something important. It says that a life of moral clarity grounded not in shifting emotions or desired outcomes, but in duty and respect. It dares us to act not for reward, but because it is right. To follow principles we believe should guide everyone, everywhere. Kant's vision compels us to see others not as means to our own ends, but as ends in themselves, equal in worth, capable of reason, and deserving of dignity. This isn't merely a philosophy, it's a challenge to hold ourselves to universal standards in a world that often justify anything by result. Though it has its critics and limitations, deontology remains our moral compass that pushes us toward integrity, justice, and respect in a complex world that is no small gift.